Hey guys, I'm your host Tara A. Devlin, and welcome to this week's episode of Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. My latest book, Toshiden Theater, Bite-Sized Japanese Urban Legends Volume 1, is now out. If you've ever wanted a collection of short, bite-sized stories you could zip through whenever you have a few minutes spare, then this is the book for you. Bringing you all sorts of Japanese urban legends you may or may not have heard of before, these creepy, odd, and bizarre little tales will keep you entertained and no doubt thinking about them for quite some time to come. Toshiden Theater is available on Amazon right now, so do check it out and help support the show at the same time. This week, we're looking at some stories that will make you question whether we really know all that's out there. What lurks where we can't see it, and what can we even do if it decides to come out and play? First up, we're looking at a terrifying urban legend often passed around the Ni-channel boards going by the name of Channel 6. What is Channel 6 and why should you do everything in your power to avoid watching it? Find out in Channel 6. Have you ever heard of the urban legend about Channel 6? Of course you have. Everyone has. Yes, that Channel 6. After hearing this story, you'll never be able to watch Channel 6 at 6 o'clock ever again, I'm sure. A young man returned home from school. The time was exactly 6 p.m. He went straight to his room and turned the TV on, flicking through the channels. The time is now 6 p.m., each of the news shows said. Yet, when he reached Channel 6, something caught his attention. 3 delinquents from a certain high school, said to be backed by the Yakuza, were brutally attacking and killing both students and staff from nearby elementary, junior, and high schools. After committing the crimes, the 3 students then took refuge somewhere in their massive school. The police had launched an all-out search for them, but the school was truly massive, and there were countless places for them to hide. Dozens of officers were, at present, searching the school grounds. Suddenly, the screen changed to what looked like an incineration plant. Then the signal bugged out and showed what appeared to be a school's security cameras. The screen showed several piles of garbage bags. That was it. I hope they fix whatever the problem with the signal is, the young man thought. But then he noticed something. One large bag at the back of the pile. There was something in it. It was a person. Their hair was bleached blonde, and their clothes made them look just like a delinquent. The 3 delinquents were hiding in the garbage bags. Officers, you've got to check the incinerator, the young man thought. But nobody did. The delinquents no doubt hid there because they realized nobody would check there as well. As the boy continued watching, it seemed one of the delinquents noticed the camera. But they also seemed to think that nobody was watching, and so they started poking their tongue out at it and giving it the middle finger. Their attitude started to piss the young boy off, and he made gestures back at his screen, giving them the middle finger and running a thumb across his neck. He did this a few times, but then something happened. The delinquents pointed at the camera and said something. "Who the hell is that? Does he want to have a go or what?" they said. Huh? There was no way. Did that mean the television and the security cameras were somehow connected? Did they really see the gestures he made? No, impossible. He gestured again once more to check. "Hey, he really does want to go. Come on guys, let's get him," they said as soon as he did. The 3 of them jumped out of their bags and approached the camera with grins on their faces. The young man covered his face with his hands, and it seemed the delinquents had removed the security camera. What horrible expressions did they have while they were looking at him? "Hey, this guy's hiding his face. Now we don't know who he is." "What about his room?" "Nah, it's pitch black." If we could see his room, then we could go mess him up. He's just screwing with us." Hey, are you trembling? You're sweating. What's wrong, big boy? You scared? Unable to stop himself, the young man turned off the TV. Because he was able to cover his face in time, they were unable to see who he was. Still, he suddenly got curious and felt the urge to take another look. He turned the TV on. It was on Channel 5. Seemed in his fear he'd changed the channel and turned the TV off. Apparently, he'd done both these things at the same time. He pressed the button, changing it to Channel 6. The screen showed what appeared to be the inside of a car. Looked like the delinquents had fled the school, fearing they might be caught on camera again, but they'd also taken the security camera with them. "Hey, there he is again!" one of them said, holding the camera up. The young man immediately turned the TV off. He had a feeling he'd be in danger if he stayed home, so he ran out to visit a friend. He was drenched in sweat by the time he got there, and he ran inside without saying a word. His friend stepped aside to let him in. "Hey, can you take Channel 6 for me?" the young man finally said after he calmed down. His friend did as asked and put the TV on Channel 6. The young man ran out of the room and asked his friend what was on the TV from the darkness outside. There's 3 guys in a car. They're looking this way," he said. The young man screamed in fear and ran out of the house. Once he was a short distance away from his friend's house, he turned on the small TV he had, for some reason, brought with him. He didn't know why, but it was on Channel 6 and it's still showing the inside of a car. Wait. Something was odd. The scenery outside the car looked familiar. Yeah, if you turned there, and then turned there... The young man realized that if they kept going, they'd soon be at his friend's house. No way! They were still watching? Idiot! Turn the TV off! Then he heard their voices. "Ah, just over there, right? Yeah, that house and room and the scenery we saw outside looked just like this, no doubt about it." The young man looked up and saw a large car that could fit 4 or 5 people approaching his friend's house. Then they got out of the car and rang his doorbell. Bing bong! Over and over, 6 times. "Excuse me, coming in," they said, kicking the door open and running inside. After a few minutes of silence, he suddenly heard the screams of violence. "Hey, you little shit. Listen up, we've already killed 5 people, and now you're the 6th. The young man was so terrified that he ran straight home. When he got there, he dove under his blanket and went straight to sleep. The next day, he was watching the morning news when he saw his friend's house. Someone had been murdered there. Those 3 delinquents had killed his friend. And after that, the young man never watched Channel 6 at 6 o'clock ever again. You should take care to avoid watching Channel 6 at 6 p.m. as well. The kids in this next story hear of a way to apparently visit another dimension. Of course, they decide to test it out right away, but will they succeed? And if so, will they even be able to come back? Find out in Another Dimension. This is a strange story that happened to me when I was in the 3rd grade. My friends and I were really into the occult at the time. One day, one of my friends mentioned they discovered a way to go to another dimension. They heard it from somewhere, I don't know where. Do you think that's safe? Like, can we come back? I asked. Yeah, it's easy, but we need more than just the 2 of us, he said. And so we invited a few more friends to try it out. I have to pray to this stone and then say a spell, so don't open your eyes until I tell you to, okay? My friend said when the day came. Another 3 friends joined us for 5 in total, and we all held hands in a circle. All right, everyone close your eyes. He started muttering something in a small voice, and then, when he was done, he said, okay. We all opened our eyes. My friend's house faced a park, and we did the ritual there after school. Before me, everything looked like it always did. Nothing was different. Did anything change? I asked. Yeah, here we are. Another dimension, my friend answered. We walked around the park, looking around here and there. The park, the slide, the swings, the tire, the grounds, children playing. Not a single thing had changed. I thought that he had to be lying. He was just taking us for a ride, and so I didn't really believe him. But as I walked around the grounds, I saw a single dandelion blooming in the small pile of rubble in the corner of the park. It was past midsummer at the time, so it wasn't the season for dandelions. Something about it looked especially beautiful. We should go back. We can't stay here too long, my friend said. And so we went back to where we performed the ritual and held hands again. We all have to say, I want to go home, at the same time, okay? Close your eyes. Ready? Okay. Open your eyes. When we opened our eyes, we were in that same park again. Hey, are we home? I asked. Yep. See, look, you know those kids over there, don't you? My friend said, pointing at some children playing nearby. That was when I realized something. The people I saw playing at the park before, I didn't know any of them. I didn't recognize any faces. I might have just been a kid, but I was still like, no way. I looked around for anything that was different, but I couldn't find anything. I went and checked where I saw that dandelion, but it wasn't there either. A chill ran down my spine. It was the first time I'd ever felt anything like that before. I never told my friends about the dandelion I saw, and there was no way they could have pulled it out before I saw it. Even now, I have no answer to the mystery of that flower, and it was the first time in my life I ever felt such chills. Reality is a strange thing that has perplexed many for thousands of years now. Is it truly how we perceive it? What if suddenly things just changed? That's what happens to the woman in this next story, but did it all really happen, or was it just one long, wild dream? Find out in From November 14th. This is one of those strange time slip or reincarnation stories or something you often hear about around here. My apologies for it going a little wild with regards to mental health. So, a while ago I was a crazy fan of this actor. I used to watch all of his films and I bought every magazine he ever appeared in. But then one day, this actor took a break from work because he was ill. I patiently awaited his return, but then he passed away from said illness. When I found out he passed away, I was at a loss. I fell into a deep depression and was unable to do anything. I became mentally unstable and I was unable to leave the house, constantly breaking down in tears. I tried to hurt myself, and although it seems silly now, at the time I honestly thought, he died because of you. You being his agency, and I sent them numerous insulting faxes and telephone calls too. Over time, I started to develop an interest in the occult, thinking that maybe I could bring him back to life somehow. I tried all sorts of things related to demons, spirits, even temple visits, but nothing worked. I was so upset at everything that one day I went up onto the roof of my apartment building, determined to end it all. There was a beautiful starry sky that night with a bright white full moon, and seeing it like that, I lost it and started crying. "Give him back! I'll die in his stead, so give him back!" Ah! I screamed helplessly, and then I climbed over the fence and jumped. At least, that's what I remembered. The next thing I knew, I woke up and I was lying in my own bed. I turned the TV on, thinking about what a strangely vivid dream I'd had and how late it already was. But then I noticed something strange. The date. It was November 14th when I jumped, but the date on the TV said that today was November 14th. The feeling of being in a dream gradually faded, and I started to notice more and more strange things. Supposing that was just a dream, then I had no other memories of the day before, and I had no memory of going to bed either. There was also one more thing. There was this horrible feeling inside me when I remembered what I'd done. On top of that, I'd lost all passion for that actor and I sold everything related to him. My DVDs and magazines, even my other goods. I was so in love with him, but now I felt nothing. It was like a black stain on my history. Life proceeded peacefully after that, and nothing weighed my heart down. But one day when I was watching the TV, I saw that actor answering questions on a talk show. Huh? I was so confused, but then I looked him up on the internet and I didn't see any mention of his illness whatsoever. I sat in front of the monitor in shock. He was alive and well. Since then, I've seen him on numerous TV shows, but I'm sure he was someone who didn't like to do that sort of thing. I searched the internet numerous times looking for any information relating to his death, and I even checked Knee Channel for condolences and such, but I couldn't find a single thing. If it was all nothing more than a dream, then sure, fine. 1 year has passed since that time, and the memories are starting to feel like dreams. But either way, there's just something about it that doesn't feel right. And it's an embarrassing stain on my history that honestly depresses me. The boy in this next story goes through a period where he has nightmares each and every night. But these nightmares are so bad that they keep his family up as well. At their wits' end, they decide to try something drastic to help him. But will it work? Find out in The Nightmare Box. When I was around 10, I had terrible nightmares night after night for 2 or 3 weeks. I was just a kid, so I don't remember everything exactly, but according to my mother, I would scream and roll around on the floor each night, scratching at my throat. When I woke up in the morning, I was always drenched in sweat. If it only happened once, then sure, whatever, no big deal. But this happened night after night after night. I was honestly scared to go to sleep, and before long, I was suffering from exhaustion because I tried to stay awake constantly. I lost so much weight I was like a walking skeleton, and my complexion turned to clay. I saw doctors and even spirit mediums, but nobody knew what was going on. And so, the nightmares and struggling continued night after night. Both my parents lost weight as well, to the point where I thought they were doing worse than I was. As I mentioned at the start, this only lasted for 2 or 3 weeks, but it wasn't a spirit medium, a priest, nor even a monk who saved me. Can you guess who did? I doubt you'll get it. The correct answer is a hypnotist. This hypnotist was just an amateur, but he helped cure my father of a mild phobia he had, and so my father decided to take me to see him as well. I didn't think it would work. I mean, it was a hypnotist. But it turned out that I was pretty susceptible to suggestion, just like my father. And his strategy was to make me forget the nightmares. Strangely, I clearly remembered what happened in my dreams when I woke up, although this was limited to the nightmares I was having at the time. The hypnotist made me write down the content of my dreams on a piece of Japanese paper that had a picture of a house on it. It was painful to remember them. Terrible work I didn't like. The hypnotist then put the paper in a box, put a charm on the lid so that it couldn't be opened, and then hid it somewhere only the two of us knew about. I can't be more specific about it, sorry, but it was a place where it would be easy to take the box out, but also somewhere where nobody would ever think to look, not even my parents. The hypnotist told me there was nothing to be afraid of anymore. All my nightmares were locked inside that box, and as long as I didn't open it, I would be fine. And strangely, he was right. I was released from my nightmares. You can imagine how grateful my family and I were to him. But that box full of nightmares is still within my reach, and it's always there, lurking in the corner of my mind. When I returned home after I graduated university, I remembered that box. And after remembering it, I couldn't get it out of my head. I knew best how frightening those dreams were at the time, but I had naturally forgotten exactly what happened in them. Of course, I was afraid, but when looking at your childhood fears as an adult, they seem so much smaller, right? Now that I was grown up, I could guess what the hypnotist had said to hypnotize me. I knew all the magic tricks. I wanted to expose my childhood fears to the light of day and turn them into a funny story. And so, with that in mind, I secretly went to get the box. I could see the charm on the lid. It was rather shoddily made, so I thought the hypnotist didn't have a lot of psychic power. I started scraping at the edges of the charm with my fingernail to pull it off. And then, suddenly, the contents of the dreams I'd forgotten for more than 10 years all came flooding back. I was in a Japanese-style room, looking at a paper screen door with light shining through it. Bamboo near the veranda outside cast shadows, and a grinning face, like that of the happy middle-aged Ebisu, peered through a single square window above. But it was only a face. The only shadow in the room was that of the bamboo swaying. There was no body. There was a double sliding door behind me. I knew there was a room back there cut off from the rest of the house by those doors. I could hear a small cooing sound, like that of a dove. Then something started banging, gradually getting louder and louder. Sliding door after sliding door opened, and something was running at full speed towards me. A man laughed, a loud, joyful laugh that came from the bottom of his stomach, and it was gradually getting louder. I froze. Something inside me told me I absolutely mustn't turn around. Bang! The door behind me opened. I could smell a man's foul breath right by the nape of my neck. He was doing it on purpose. Then, he started to whisper something in my ear. I dropped the box. It hit the floor with a clang and I came back to my senses. I put the box back where it came from and went straight home. And that's why that box is still there, even now. A train driver bringing in the last train for the night notices something odd on the tracks. Something that shouldn't be there. But the truth behind this strange sight might be even more frightening. Find out why in White Shadow. This happened when I was a driver for a local private train line out in the countryside. It was late autumn, and it was a dark, windless night with not even a single star in the sky. It was just before the final train for the night, and once that was done, work was over. This train ran on a single line through the mountains, stopping at each small station on the way. After passing through an unmanned station, the conductor came up to the driver's seat. The next station had a ticket gate near the front of the train, so this was the usual practice to get ready to collect tickets. The junior conductor and I had some light chat through the blackout curtain in the driver's room, and as we passed through a valley and into some fields, the lights on the front of the train illuminated the straight tracks ahead of us. To the left was a narrow residential road, and to the right, some dried-up fields. The train would arrive at the station in about 1 minute, after going up a gentle slope behind a few sporadic houses. But suddenly, on the right side of the tracks, I noticed a strange figure standing by a greenhouse. It wasn't raining, and yet the figure was wearing what looked like a white raincoat pulled up over their head. Please don't try to pass, I thought, and lightly stepped on the brakes while ringing the alarm. The figure was about 60 meters away, and I dropped speed to 40 kilometers per hour. Then, the figure stepped onto the tracks without even looking. "Ah, you idiot!" I screamed. The steering wheel was in the full braking position, and I slammed on the pedal. The reason I didn't switch to the emergency lane was because I knew from experience that the train would have crossed over. Still, I kept my eyes ahead and prepared my entry just in case. But then, the figure seemed to float up into the air and disappeared. It had to be some kind of illusion, like the vinyl from the greenhouse billowing in the wind. But there was no wind. Did they pass over? The train had already slowed to its slowest speed, in part thanks to the hill we were going up. I stood up and looked around, but we'd already passed the spot where the figure was, and nobody was there. The train continued without any sort of strange noise or impact. I rushed to put the steering wheel back into position and sat down, feeling like I'd just been ensnared by a kitsune. What was that just now? Had I seen something that wasn't real? That was it, wasn't it? At that moment, the conductor, who was staring ahead into the darkness with his hand on the window, said, "What was that just now? It disappeared." It wasn't just my imagination. He had seen it too. A chill ran down my spine. After returning to the crew area, I checked to see if there was ever an accident at that location, but there was nothing. We were the only people to ever experience something like that there, and nobody believed us. There was, however, records of a child who was hit at a crossing a little further down the line quite some time ago. This boy had been a friend of H-kun, another driver who joined at the same time as me. If it really was that boy, then he must have mistaken me for his childhood friend, right? Perhaps it was the anniversary of his death and H-kun was off duty, so I was chosen instead. I don't know, but either way, my health isn't quite as good these days, so I no longer work as a train driver. But that was the strangest experience I ever had. There are lots of people who find Japanese dolls terrifying, and they're certainly a staple of scary stories. The young woman in this next story has a rather good reason to fear them, but it might not just be her that they're after. Find out why in The Dolls That Won't Stop Chasing. Let me share one of my experiences. My parents live in the countryside of Kyushu. It's a rather big house, about 360 square meters large. And when you think of houses in the countryside, naturally you think of Japanese dolls, right? My parents had some too. So, let's get to the heart of the story. When I was around 4 years old, I had a strange dream. The Japanese dolls in our house were chasing me everywhere. It wasn't that the dolls themselves were moving, but rather, in the dream, no matter where I went, there were several of them in cases waiting to ambush me. I told my family about the dream. They all laughed at me, but the dream was so realistic that I was terribly afraid of all the dolls in our house. Time passed and I'd mostly forgotten about the dream until I got out of the bath one night and screamed. When I opened the door, there were 4 or 5 dolls standing there. My family immediately rushed over and the atmosphere in the room felt strange. At the time, my brother, who was 8 years older than me, knew I was afraid of dolls, and it turned out that he did it to scare me. After that, my parents both had to work, for financial reasons, and my brother got a job too, so he only came back home for big events like New Year's and such. As such, I spent most of my time home alone after club activities ended, until about 10 p.m. each night. But I could always feel eyes looking at me. Looking back on it now, it was probably just a sensation born of the fear I felt. Anyway, time passed, and when I was in the 2nd grade of high school, my father started acting strange. He started covering the mirror in my parents' bedroom with a cloth. I was at an age where I wanted to dress up, so I used that mirror a lot. But one day I forgot to put the cloth back on after I was done using it. When my father got home and saw it, he lost it. It was the angriest I'd ever seen him. "Why are you so angry?" I decided to ask. "I can feel eyes looking at me," he said. "Even when I sleep, I can feel them in my dreams. It creeps me the hell out. It's like the dolls are looking at me through the mirror." A chill ran down my spine. There was someone else who felt eyes looking at them too. I graduated high school after that, and then moved out of home to go to university. I no longer felt eyes on me after moving out. Sometime later, I went to my brother's house to visit him. "Do you feel different after leaving that house?" he asked me. "Why do you ask?" I said. "Because you were being watched there." An uneasy feeling washed over me. "Tell me everything," I said. "Everything you know." "Well, that dream you had when you were young. A, my older sister, and I had similar dreams. I dreamt of hide and seek, while A dreamt of Daruma-san ga koronda." I was shocked. When I told everyone my dream, they all laughed at me. But my brother continued. "I can tell you this now, but those dolls you saw when you got out of the bath that day, I didn't put them there. But if I said that at the time, well, it would have been a whole big thing, right? But anyway, try not to worry about it too much. It's not like they'll hurt you or anything." I questioned him further. "You've heard Dad talk about this before, right? How our ancestor was a fallen warrior from the Heike clan called Shiba. Well, there's a story you might not have heard," he said. "I heard this from our grandfather, who died before you were born. After Shiba fell in battle, he was looked after quite well by some locals. To say thank you, he would teach the local children what he knew and play with them and such. But now, here's what I think. I think one of those kids that he taught died while still young, but because they still wanted to keep playing with him, they hung around and haunted him. And they're still haunting his family line. Us. Today. My brother's story was shocking. Honestly, the fact the dolls moved by themselves was more shocking to me than the story about Shiba-san. And, to be honest, I didn't want to believe it. Why was my brother so unconcerned about all of this? But I still had one more question. Supposing my brother was right, what was it that my father sensed looking at him? He said he never experienced anything like we did when he was a kid. And yet, my brother's story would contradict that. Plus, he was so frightened. Even now, there's still a cloth over the mirror in my parents' bedroom back home, and those dolls are still there and well too. I'm constantly worried that something bad is going to happen though. Finally this week, a young man has a choice of riding through town or the mountains to get to school and naturally takes the easier route most of the time. But when he's forced to take the mountain path one evening, well, he runs into something terrifying that doesn't want him to get home. Will he make it? Find out in Yamakerashi-sama. I lived way out in the countryside, and to get to school, it was a 12-kilometer round trip that I had to take on bike. There was a bus, but we didn't exactly have a lot of money, so buying a pass was a waste. There were 2 ways to get to school. The first was a little longer, but went through the city, and the other was shorter, but went over the mountains. I didn't want to get sweaty, so I usually took the longer but easier route through the city. One day, I was playing basketball with my friends at the school gym until late, so to get home a little quicker than I would otherwise, I took the mountain route. I stopped to get a drink at the convenience store on the junction between the road to the city and the road to the mountain, and then took the mountain path. The sun was starting to set, so it was rather eerie, and as I listened to the cries of the cicadas, I started to grow anxious. Even as I pedaled, I wondered if I should turn back and go through town anyway. But then suddenly, I heard a sound that's hard to describe. It was kind of like groaning, and then suddenly it was like something landed on my back. Something was pushing my upper body down, and I broke out in a strange cold sweat all over. I was too scared to look back, so I just kept pedaling, trying to get over the pass. As I did, I could still hear that strange voice coming from near my back. There was definitely something weird there. What could I even do? I was close to tears, and as I reached the top of the slope about halfway up the mountain, the area before me opened up. I stopped the bike to catch my breath, and as I looked towards the cliff next to me, there was a small girl. The sun was setting, so I couldn't see her very well, but she appeared to be wearing a white shirt with a hooded jacket over it, as well as a denim skirt. She was maybe 6 or 7 years old. It was a mountain road in the countryside that cars barely even used, so there was no way a young girl could be out there. Ah, maybe she's a ghost, I thought, and froze on the spot. The girl ran over and then stopped, staring up at me. She seemed to stare at me for about 10 seconds, but then suddenly she seemed to dust something off my leg. She smiled, as if to say, "Are you okay? Don't worry," and then turned and ran towards the cliff before disappearing. Oh no, did she fall? I thought, but when I ran over to look, I didn't see any signs of her. So then, she really wasn't a human. But strangely, the weight on my back disappeared after she slapped me, and the strange voice was gone too. It was quite dark by the time I got home, and I told my grandmother all about the strange thing I felt on my back and the little girl I saw by the cliff. After hearing my story, she grabbed some kind of tree branch, I don't know what type, and brushed it down my back 2 or 3 times. "What are you doing?" I asked her. "You ran into Yamakerashi-sama," she said. According to her, the thing that landed on my back wasn't good, and it was trying to drag me to the other side. And if it wasn't for that little girl, it would have been successful. And that little girl was Yamakerashi-sama. Or rather, one of them. There were 12 in total, and apparently they were the children of the mountain god. They didn't generally interact with humans much, they just played on the mountain. But perhaps the thing that tried to possess me was rather evil, and so the little girl decided to step in and help. The pure and innocent Yamakerashi-sama must have felt bad for you, seeing such an evil thing on your back, and so she got rid of it for you. I decided to leave an offering to thank Yamakerashi-sama. Back in the old days, people used to leave an offering of 12 pairs of small straw sandals, so I thought that might be nice, but I couldn't find anywhere selling them. Suddenly I remembered that little girl was dressed in rather modern clothes, so I decided 12 pairs of small, comfy sneakers might be a better idea. At any rate, I bought 2 pairs and left them on the mountain on my way to school. I wanted to check if they were gone on my way home, but Grandma said it was dangerous there around dusk, so I decided I'd check the following morning instead. And what do you know? The shoes were gone. Yamakerashi-sama must have liked them and decided to wear them, I thought. I didn't have a lot of pocket money, so I could only buy 2 pairs a week, but by next week, I'll be done. When I think of Yamakerashi-sama running around the mountain wearing those sneakers, it makes me smile. I wonder if I'll get to see her again someday. I sure hope so, and my route to school does take me over the mountain, so maybe. A massive thank you and shout out to this week's Kami tier members, Christina, Giovanni, and S-. It's thanks to your support, along with everyone else, that I'm able to keep doing this show, so thank you very much. Don't forget to check out Toshiden Theatre, Bite-Sized Japanese Urban Legends Volume 1, out on Amazon right now. And check out our newly revamped merchandise store at kowabana.store. And if you'd like to chat about this week's stories, come and join us in the Kowabana Discord. You can find that link in the description or on kowabana.net. You can also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/TaraADevlin for exclusive bonus stories and extras, or our YouTube channel at youtube.com/KowabanaJapan for all sorts of Japanese horror you won't find anywhere else. Thanks guys, stay safe, and I'll see you again next time for even more Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. Want even more scary stories? Head over to kowabana.net for new translations every week. You can also join our Patreon for exclusive stories you won't find anywhere else. Head over to kowabana.net now.